hate that it gets quiet when I walk in here. It makes me feel uncomfortable.
We're in trouble.
It's like when the teacher comes into the
Well,
class.
back in the day,
Pastor of church.
we actually had discipline and structure in elementary and junior high school. You had to go to the principal's office, like, I mean, I don't know if I was in there quite a bit. And you walk in and everybody got quiet, you know? Didn't know if you were gonna get paddled or not.
Glad I wasn't the only one.
Yeah, you understand, right?
Oh, yeah, I understand perfectly.
Well, they beat me to death. Okay, and I got it when I got home.
Yeah.
Where's the belt?
Yeah, hopefully. Okay, go ahead, I'm ready when you guys are.
Mike, you guys didn't seem to shy away from running the ball up the middle the other day. Was that part of the plan? Did you feel like you could handle that, even though, I mean, that nose tackle is one of the best around?
Yeah, so as the game went on, they had, well, I shouldn't say as the game went on. In my opinion, they came into the game and said, we don't want OSU to rush the football. And extra guys are in the box, and in majority of the time, the extra guy is gonna come from the safety position or an outside down in a C or D gap, not an A or B gap. And they did a good job of that. So then we had to come to the realization that there's gonna be an extra player. Where will he be? He's gonna be out wide. So we can try to force and rush the ball inside, leave the outside player standing outside, and if he's gonna fold back in and make a play, it's for 5, 6, 7, 8 yards. That's why that transpired as the game went on.
Mike, after watching the tape, did you learn anything new about what Leon Johnson is capable of on Saturday?
Well, I think we were all surprised and very impressed with his performance in essentially his first game at this level. He has shown signs in practice of performing at a high level. Practice is one thing, games are another. We talked about that a number of times. And until we get a young man on the field in a game, we never know what they can do. And so that's why we have tried to play as many as possible this year. And he's a perfect example of nobody would have thought that he could have come in his first game in what was not a great day weather-wise for throwing and catching. It wasn't bad, but it's not like a normal day in September or October, and perform at the level he did. And so he came in and did something we didn't know he could do in a conference game.
Where do you stand with as far as him, obviously, and possible red shirt, and also the guys that were out? Do you think you have any of those guys back?
Well, hopefully we'll get some of the injured players. We had multiple injured players from West Virginia back practice in the middle of this week. I cannot imagine that we would redshirt Leon at this point with where he's at. I know you had a follow-up there, you didn't get it in. Is there something you needed?
Is his strength the deep ball, or is that just what he showed on Saturday?
Again, they dropped an extra player down in the box to stop the run, which in most cases is going to make teams vulnerable down the field more so than in underneath zone concepts, because you're in the middle close, more of a man thought process, and so it evolved in that direction. He's been good in practice on all of them really, but he does have length, and he's a basketball player, and he can go up and take the ball at the highest point, which is advantageous for him being at however tall he is, 6'5" or whatever.
He's a center fielder in baseball.
Good
I thought he
player,
was really good at that.
Yeah, that's
Saw
right.
some highlights. He's the newcomer of the week, and Ollie's the offensive player of the week. So you got 2 on the board this week.
Yeah, they've done well. It's they're getting a lot of accolades. We've addressed those, right? Ollie's been fantastic, and obviously Leon was fantastic, but the offensive line was fantastic. I mean, they don't give that award away, but these things aren't going to transpire without the adjustment of physicality and being fundamentally sound and executing without the guys that are playing. Those 6 or 7 guys that have played up front over the last 5 weeks or so have been excellent, and for that reason, these guys have an opportunity to win Player of the Week awards.
Can you remember a team you've been on, played on, coached, OC, head coach, whatever, that has, not just in their play, but emotionally in the way they carry themselves, progressed as much as this group has in a month?
The teams all run together with me in years past. I think it's fair to say this team emotionally and chemistry standpoint has progressed more from what the team was at this point last year, even prior to the injuries and sliding off at the latter part of the season. This team has made more strides in a 12-month period than any team I've been around. I would say that's fair.
Back to Leon Johnson real fast. How much development did he need coming in from the Division III level?
It was considerably different for him. It's funny, we've got quite a few guys that are on our team now that came from lower levels, whether at that level or UMass or whatever level it may be, okay? I watched a little bit of the end of the game last night. The quarterback that played for the Bears came from a small school. And they talk about that a lot. And the percentages are very, very, very low because with technology now and the ability for coaches to evaluate talent across the country, unlike in the past when you had to go find them, you don't have to find them anymore. So those numbers go way, way down because there's not a lot of diamonds in the rough or hidden gems out there based on technology, okay? So I've talked to several of the players on our team that have come from a school that might not be at our level and moved their way up, and they all said the same thing, that it is quite an adjustment. The day-to-day physicality and the demands on your body in a very highly competitive level. Like I said the other day with 16, Josiah, he said, Coach, these guys, because he's got like a broken toe, he's got a major thigh bruise, it's like the back of his leg is black, like my jeans, about that big, and he's got something else wrong with him. I don't know what else got wrong with him. It's been going on for about a month, and I was razzing him a little bit, basically wanting to make sure he was still going to practice over the last few weeks because he's beat up. And he said, yeah, Coach, guys at this level hit a little bit harder when I was at UMass. He was just telling the truth. The kid's just being honest. So it's interesting. It takes them a while to adjust to the everyday wear and tear, in my opinion. I think that's the adjustment.
How much different is the world of Division III college football to Big 12?
Well, that'd be good for you. You can do a little research on that. I'm gonna bet it's huge. I'm gonna bet they don't have a training table. I'm gonna bet they don't have snacks. I'm gonna bet they don't do NIL. I'm gonna bet that they have to fend for their own housing in most cases. They're not spoiled academically. They don't go over here and sit down and 9 people sit and help them get ready for a test. Probably more in survival mode. I'm gonna guess that they, scholarship-wise, what does Division III do? They bring them up.
Division III don't scholarship.
Yeah, so it's just like when you went to school, right? You eat ramen noodles?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, Division III guys probably eat ramen noodles.
Buses and Motel 6 for road trips.
Yeah, so it's huge, huge difference, yeah.
Hey, Mike, as it relates to Ollie, obviously a lot of attention nationally now, the spotlight on him. Have you had any conversations with him just about how to handle that, or what you'd like to see him, just in how he deals with that attention?
Sure, for the last month.
Okay.
I've talked to him several times every week, usually later in the week on a Friday, talked to him during the game when he lost his composure. It's an ongoing process. It's different now than ever with young people because of social media and because of phones and the notoriety. And if you have pride and then you do something and you come up short, or you're on a short-term failure, and it concerns you and you lose your composure, you make yourself very vulnerable. And that can happen with young people. Ollie's still young. He's only been here 2 years, a year and a half. And he's playing great, but he's still a young person. He's learning. And he can get valuable information from those that have been ahead of him and before him. And so we try to give him as much as possible.
Have you tried to set him up maybe with some guys that have come before him and handled some big spotlights?
We haven't got to that. We're in the season. I mean, a month ago, nobody wanted to talk about Ollie, right? So the only guys he's got to me. And I said it the other day, and I don't mind saying it again. I played with the 2 best running backs, 2 of the best in college football ever. So I can give him information on what those guys did and how they handled themselves if they had a tough day or a tough practice or whatever, and give him information I think can help him based on my history with those guys.
It seems to me, I'm an outsider. You obviously knew Thurman and Barry differently, but it seems Thurman is closer personality-wise to Ollie than Barry would be to Ollie. But what have you told Ollie about how those guys handled it? Maybe his personality, how he's maybe going to be able to navigate
Ollie's
that.
personality works against him publicly, social media-wise, what happened the other night. Barry never talked to anybody. It was not an issue. Thurman was an outgoing person and all that, but not to the extreme of what Ollie is, okay? So Ollie is, as he progresses in his career, as he handles things, he could market himself for a huge future in advertisements and commercials and stuff, because they're looking for guys like that. He's a good-looking guy, he's big, he's got a beautiful smile, he's got a great personality, he likes to talk to people. I mean, they'll be all over him. But he has to learn the integral parts of what can get him to that point, because this is a fact. If he continues to perform like that, he'll have those opportunities. If he doesn't perform out there like that, he won't have those opportunities, whether we like it or not. These are things he has to do to perform like that to stay at this level.
Coach, what does it say about him? When you had that talk with him on the sideline, it looked like it lasted for a while, considering he was in the game, but two of his next 3 carries were for 17 and 22 yards. It looks like he responded almost immediately from that.
I need to become a counselor. And the C I got in psychology, my second year of college, must have provided me some insight. But that was the most time I've ever spent discussing a situation during the game with the player on the sideline. And he responded very well. Came back to me multiple times during the night, or during the game, and at halftime apologized to me and responded very well. But it's his choice, right? It's his career and our team. Those were the 2 things at stake right now. People watch Ollie and relate him to our team. People watch Ollie and relate him to his career. Those are 2 things that are very important, and these are choices he has to make now from this point moving forward. It's okay to make a mistake. It's not okay to compromise your confidence in yourself to recover from making a mistake like he did. But it was the best thing that could happen, because it's happened. I knew it was going to happen. I knew it was just a matter of time. I kind of been leaving in here talking to you guys for the last few weeks. What have I said? He needs to stay humble and he needs to stay hungry. I've seen it too many times. Social media makes it much, much, much worse. Thurman might have been a victim of that, because Thurman loved to be, loved people and liked to do all that. Barry wouldn't have, because Barry wouldn't even not have had a phone at that particular time in his career. Different. So, but that's what they pay me to do, right? To keep guys like him intact. I don't draw plays. I don't go throw passes anymore. They pay me to do things like that. Fortunate for me, I challenged him and it worked. If he would have left and walked off to the locker room and went home, then maybe we would have been in a different situation.
5 full games with Alan Bowman now playing the full game. What have you liked? What have you not liked? What do you want to see other than the remaining 4 games?
Well, he's making plays. I would like to see him sit and not flush the pocket as much. I would like to see him not drift as much. But he's manufacturing and we're productive. So I like his ability to distribute the ball where it needs to be. But my thoughts with him are going to be similar to where a month ago with his strengths and what he does are very similar to Mason's. And Mason learned during his career to stay in the pocket, and stay in the pocket, and move, and stay in the pocket, and stay in the pocket, and dump the ball off. Don't flush. Early in his career, he flushed and he sacked himself a lot of times. So he's better in this game than he was, but we need him to sit in there and play to his strengths. And it'd be different if he could take off like Spencer and run. So Spencer flushed a lot sometimes when he maybe not should have, but it's okay because he took off and ran for 18 yards. Different thought process.
Mike, you've 3 times this century you guys have had a loss to a mid-major. All 3 times you came back, had a really good year, and did things you were hoping to do. What is it about you're able to put a loss like that behind you? What do you have in place that gets guys going?
You said 3 times in a what?
In this century.
Really? Wow.
La Tech, Central Michigan, which, and then.
Well, you gotta quit counting Central Michigan against me. That's fair,
I'm with
right?
you on that, except you should have beat them way worse than 4
Well, I know, but should've and all that doesn't count. But I'll buy it for now. I'm not sure. The only thing that, we just try to continue to work. It's like this week, right? So we can feel good about ourselves, and this is coach's talk, but it's the truth. It's the challenge we have with young people now. It's always been this way, but it's more now than ever, is they have to absorb information in meetings today, be productive in our walkthroughs tonight, and mentally prepare for tomorrow's practice, Tuesday and Wednesday's practice, to get ready for a walkthrough Thursday and a walkthrough Friday. And if they get out of their box and let their mind go different directions, you're not going to play very well. So I don't have an answer for Was I the coach when we lost to La Tech?
You're
No.
coordinator.
Okay. So Central Michigan, I can't remember, but I know this year, I just said, look, guys, I need somebody in the room in here to raise their hand if they can help me change the score of the South Alabama game. And everybody kind of looked at me. I said, can anybody in here help me? I'd like for that to go away from my memory. And they said no, and I said, okay, then we need to move forward and it's over with. And let's do something about it instead of worrying about what happened. That's just been my approach.
Mike, is it harder, you talk about keeping them in that box, is it harder this week, knowing that the opponent and the Bedlam,
Oh, I
all
think,
talk?
I would say yes, just based on the relationships that these guys have with each other. So there's a video out with Tom Brady that you guys might have seen it. He does a lot of motivational stuff, but there was one out that talks about early in his career when he played against opponents that they weren't his friends. We go to battle, we go to war, and it's me against them, and these guys aren't my friends. Well, that's the way it used to be in college football, and particularly in rivalry games. These guys are friends with all those guys. They've been in touch. They play summer 7-on-7 together. They have the same trainers in the summer in high school. Some of them play on the same high school teams. They're friends on, I don't know what they're called, Instagram or whatever that stuff is. They're friends on that. They talk, they communicate. Some of our guys go to their games on open day, and their guys come to our games on open day. So it's crazy. But I would say that it is more of a challenge this week because of the entire state, all the fans, all the media are charged about this game. But it's much different than it ever has been before because these guys all have relationships.
Speaking of different, is it unique for you to know that Trace is on the other side in this game?
I've watched a lot of tape and honestly have never paid attention or noticed. I look at concept, schemes, numbers, what I think ability is, not ability, what to attack, what I want to stay away from, things like that, more so than necessarily who it would be. So I don't really notice things like that.
All right, this is interesting because as a competitor, and I consider you a pretty damn good competitor, it's always more fun to beat your friends and people you knew, and maybe even more important to beat those people than the ones you don't. Do you prescribe to that theory? Or does it matter?
I don't know. I mean, I would like to build it up as something. I just don't know how much any of that plays a role. I think that people say it's a big game. I mean, and I've said this for years, every game's a big game, or the end of the year doesn't become a big game. So early in the year when we weren't playing as good, people didn't talk about the next game being a big game. But they continue to grow a little bit if you play and win the games prior to. So our team needs to approach this game with our concepts, our schemes against their concepts and their schemes. And then what we think are our strengths compared to theirs, weaknesses compared to theirs, so on and so forth. And then prepare and then go out and play hard. That will factor into the game much more than any of the sideshow that could show its face.
This week, there are 3 games between teams that are in the top 6 in the standings. KU's got 2 losses, I guess. They play Iowa State, but K-State and Texas play, and Bedlam. Are you surprised that the conference is actually turning out this way, or did you kind of think it would be this way?
I've said this for years. I said it again this year. There's more parity now ever. Just look at the games across the country, all over the place. Look at what's going on in this conference. You're going to have more than 6 and 7 win teams than you've ever had before based on the parity and free agency in college football. And that's not going to change at this point moving forward unless they start to get a real handle on the portal and NIL, which I don't foresee that happening based on that's living in Washington, D.C. at this point.
Mike, would you agree that the finality or the potential finality of Saturday does make this a uniquely important or intense game for, if no one else, your fan base, your administration? The need to really do well in this particular game, because this may be it against Oklahoma.
We needed to do well against Kansas State. Much bigger game.
Kansas State?
Wouldn't you agree?
This
After
year?
losing to South
At the
Alabama
time
and
it
Iowa
was.
State.
No, at the time it was.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Every game's the same.
But
The Kansas game was a big one.
Yeah.
And then transitioning and trying to take the energy we had on the road to West Virginia was a big one. Well, this one doesn't matter. See what I'm saying? So we can't get out of our box. And we have to prepare and put energy into each week and try to perform at the highest level we can, or the things that you're talking about do not exist.
But there's a backdrop to this game that does not exist in any of your other ones.
What do you mean?
Well, this is this is an in-state rivalry. That's the most important game to, 95% of your fan base. This is potentially the last Bedlam game of their lifetime. We'll see what happens as it relates to the future. It's just a natural backdrop that makes this a very, very big deal. And I know you want to stay in your box, and you certainly want your players to stay in your box, but you're the head coach. You've got to feel that at some point.
It is for you, it's not for me.
Has it ever been for you?
It used to be much different because we just not like each other. Nowadays, it's just not, it's different. It's a love fest, right? Like, you ever watch a pro game before the game and all the players are out there hugging each other? The Bears and the Packers are hugging, the Lions are hugging each other, talking about who your agent is and your commercials and how much money you make. Think Dick Buckus did that? No. Nowadays, it's times different.
But your fans won't do that. And your boosters and your
Yeah.
donors,
Here's the deal.
they're not gonna hug on anyone wearing red Saturday.
Unfortunately, half of my family will, because they're half of them. They're the ones that, had issues at birth, but for the most part, I love what you're saying, and I'm gonna tell you, I am not denying, I've said this all the time, we don't have pro football. So half the I shouldn't say half, 45% of the state wears orange, 45% of the state wears red, 10 wears blue and gold, whatever, some percentage of that. And when they go to work, they're talking trash all week. Everybody's doing it, because I get the text messages. And all the same, very similar to stuff that you're saying. And from that standpoint, yes, that's true. I've had tons of national people coming in, a few national people coming in the last few days wanting to talk about the final Bedlam. Very similar to what you're doing, and that's fair, I get it. But we can't get out of our box, or we will not play well. We're not good enough to get out of our box and lose sight of what we have to do and then recover. Now, I've had teams that could, this team's not in that position.
When you were, last thing, that's where.
Yeah.
When you were a player versus where you are now as a coach, was it hard for you to not get caught up in the rivalry?
It didn't bother me because we didn't have phones and social media, but it was a rivalry then. Like, Bosworth spit in my face, I spit in his face. It was actually a rivalry, right? Like, the summer of before my sophomore year, I would go to parties in Oklahoma City and they would say, well, Bosworth and Migliozzo and some of those guys were here. And so I had to make a decision whether, were we gonna have confrontation there and who was with me? Because I'm not gonna, those guys, I can kick them in the shin and run like hell, but I'm not dumb. So we had to make those decisions because, what kind of a frame of mind was Brian gonna be in on that point? I don't know. Had he taken a vitamin C and had a few drinks, well, he might not be a guy you want to talk to at that point. He'd get real red and cross his face. So it was a rivalry then. Now, it's not as much anymore, unfortunately, because of the way it is. But it's a very important game. I don't want to push past that.
Mike, you mentioned your family and sort of with you and Kale on opposite ends of this for so long, when maybe the rivalry was a little more fierce, like you're talking about. What was that like for your family to sort of be caught in between them all of it?
So, you asked, they've all known it. You're young, so I'll give you the repeat of it. But our family is split in a lot of ways now based on different sports at OU and OSU, okay? Which is fine. When my mom was around, it was a non-conversation 365 days of the year. We did not talk about it, ever. That was not gonna be anything that was brought up in the family environment. And then on game day, I didn't get anything from people outside of, okay, good luck, we love you, we love Kale, hope both y'all have a good game. What the hell does that mean? We both can't have a good game. Somebody's gonna win, somebody's gonna lose, but that was kind of a illustration of what went on during those times.
Beyond, obviously the importance of the actual game on Saturday, being around it for so long, is it just strange to you that this might not exist anymore?
Yeah,
because
that's
of
true.
realignment?
That part is true. And I had forgotten that until it got brought up yesterday, and I had to sit down with a guy from the national media, and it just, those things don't come to my attention, and then when he brought it up, now I remember it. Now, we'll eventually play them again. I think it'll be in a bowl, like there'll be bowl. SEC and Big 12 had a lot of bowl matchups, and I think that'll probably be the next time. Regular season is, in my opinion, it's history, but the bowl matchup, you would think that whoever has a bowl game, and because they can finagle bowls now, like they don't have a pecking order like certain leagues do, that they would love to instigate that through a bowl. That would be my guess. That would be the next time it'll happen.
Mike, we've been talking 26 minutes, I think. We haven't brought up your defense. Now, what do you think of the way your defense has been playing, and what kind of a matchup is it against the OU offense?
So we've played pretty well as of late. We've given up some yards and some plays, but we've minimized points, which is important. There's times that I felt like we needed to stop the rush better. We gave up the big pass the other night on a play action boot where we got caught and we left the over route. We have made some progress. We still have a ways to go. And it'll be important in this game, as always, we have to play physical up front. They still want to rush the football. The history of the coordinator, his background, his pedigree, what he believes in is rush the football. And then they believe in the width of the field, flipping the ball out and flat and controlling the perimeter to treat those as running plays. That'll be an important matchup for our defense.
You, is considering your portal losses, Muhammad, Trace, those guys, it seems like you rallied pretty well to have the defense you have.
You know, the other guy's still playing Jernigan.
Was he really?
He's got a ton of tackles and sacks. I saw the other day. I don't know who they're playing. Oh, LSU. I was flipping the channels and I saw him, and he's like on a 7-year plan, but he's still making a lot of plays. So it's I looked a while back because I brought up in this meeting that we had right around 11 or 12 players that are competing at a pretty high level that used to be here, and we've brought guys in, but as far as guys that are in the what would be the 40-ish players that play a lot on game day, we haven't replaced 11 of them, but we're at about 50% on guys that we've brought in that have gotten back on the field and have started to produce. Now, we still have some that may have not gotten to that point yet, but just with the ones out and the ones that have come in that are actually on game field and playing.
Was there a time that you knew what you had in Nick Martin, where you said, okay, we're gonna be fine?
Oh, we liked him in high school because I think I said this, he was old school, he was violent with his body, relentless with his body, he would run and hit, he has a really good frame of mind. He's 20 years back in his approach to football. So, then he came in and was really fast, he put 20 pounds on, and we felt like we had what we wanted if he would translate high school football to this level, which in most cases is a high percentage. Most guys that are very productive are gonna do what they've done in high school and eventually do it in college once they figure it out. A few of them don't. And so luckily with what we've seen from him, he's taken what he did in high school to this level.
Going into his first game as a starter, were you concerned at all, or were you pretty sure by that point that he was gonna be?
Well, I was concerned just about him being when young guys play and haven't played, I'm concerned about that. I don't have any idea how they're gonna play. You worry about mental errors, mistakes, things like that. But he's continued to get better and better and better, and he's early, right? He didn't play very many plays last year, so he's still really early in his career.
How does playing against your running quarterbacks that can also throw, like you have against Kansas State, Kansas, even West Virginia, prepare you for what you're going to see in Dylan Gabriel on Saturday?
Yeah, he's same thing, right? He lives in their world. They love to get the ball out here, play action pass effectively along deep over routes and stuff. And then he runs better than you think he does. So is he going to take off like the guy at Kansas State or Kansas and just blindingly take off for 80 yards? Haven't seen that. But he's an effective runner, loves to run the ball down inside the 10-yard line, likes to play physical. You have to give the guy credit for his willingness to compete and play at a high level and give his body up, which is what I see him doing at this point.
guys in theory, or sorry, you guys are one of the hottest teams, and in theory, OU should be on alert because they just lost. How do those dynamics play?
Well, some people will see it opposite of that, right? Some people will see us riding high, feeling good about ourselves and not get ready, and they're all mad, upset, getting their ass kicked, and they'll be more prepared than us. So it goes back to what I was talking about a second ago. Those are all things that are irrelevant. We have to concern ourselves in our preparation about us. We don't have anything to do with what Oklahoma does. Zero. We don't control anything they do. Their preparation is based on what they do. Our preparation is based on what we do.
Mike, I know you used to say during Thanksgiving you wouldn't talk about them at all. Has that changed at all, just given the dynamic that he's not entirely on the other side of it?
He and I don't really talk about Bedlam, but he and I have talked a lot of football now. So he is a very intelligent, very experienced, very knowledgeable coach. And so for me to not use him as a resource of information would mean I'm not a very smart person. And I know a lot of people think that at times, but I'm not so dumb to not use his knowledge and information about the game and what he sees and what we do and upcoming opponents. But he and I do not speak specifically about Bedlam.
One thing about the portal, you see play, kind of like JUCO recruiting. Guys take a little time to get comfortable and get going. Good example for you guys on that, besides Leon, who, got his playing time, Goodlow. He's come way on the last couple of weeks on the defensive side of the ball. Talk about Anthony.
He's playing really hard. He's physical. He's adjusting to what we're asking him to do. He's playing with great effort. And there's a couple times I have some clips ready for our team today when I meet with him in a little bit. And he's on a couple of the clips where he's has run down the field 12 to 15 yards and was laid out full extension 3 feet off the ground at a 90-degree angle. 90 degrees flat, right? Like this?
Well, 90 degrees is like this.
Well, what was this?
180.
Horizontal?
Parallel to the ground.
Okay, so parallel. 90 if you fell over. Right, okay? And parallel to the ground, where he was like 3 feet off the ground and laying out and made a tackle twice. That's what's impressive about him. For a 300-pounder, that's impressive.
Hey,
How
Mike,
does a guy like Leon Johnson get on y'all's radar? A guy, Division III, all the way
I
out in
have
Oregon.
no idea how they found him on the portal. I have never been on the portal and started scanning. I only look at the portal that they give me to look at to say, do you like this guy or not? So I have not gotten into the computer and whatever that is that they do to find portal players. I'm guessing, you'd have to ask Todd Bradford that, and I don't mind if you ask him, but I don't know how they came up with him.
Mike, this Big 12 has seemed to revert back to a tailback league. We've got some good quarterbacks, but I can think of 5 schools that relying heavy on. Ollie was 5th in the nation a week ago in rushing yards for Power 5, and everybody above him was Big 12.
Really?
So Tech and TCU and Texas, what's going on with getting back into the tailback?
I think you're going back to some of the migration into 3-down fronts. And I can speak only about Oklahoma State offensively, as we have learned to try to attack 3-down fronts in a better way. One way is to find creases to rush the football. Because there's not 4 guys down there, there's 3, obviously. The other guy that's further away, and I think that what you're seeing is teams are realizing that if you have to find a way to overcome that, it's going to be through rushing the ball, and that's why those numbers have gone up. When we didn't have a 3-down front in this league, the passing numbers were going up because of the vacant area and where you throw passes.
Hey, Mike, you mentioned Barry Sanders a little bit ago. The year he won the Heisman, I mean, he obviously had great yards from start to finish, but do you remember what that was like around him, to watch him sort of have that growth of attention and spotlight, and what do you remember of that?
Yeah, very vividly. There's no exaggeration of his humble thought process daily. So the nutritionists that we have that feed our team and stick things down their throat, vitamins and gummies that give them energy and all the stuff we have now, they could not have worked because he lived on Snickers and cookies. And he ate a little bit of food, not much, but you never found him, because he roomed right across the hall from me. And of course, we'd walk back and forth all the time, and he was always eating candy. And then he lifted more than anybody else. He trained more because he liked to do it. And then in games, he would get tired when he was, he'd run for a bunch of yards, and he would just tell him to take him out. He did that pretty much every game, except the game against Oklahoma or Nebraska that we had to play right till the end. But the other games, we were blowing people out. He didn't get to play much. But he liked to come out of the game and watch his friends play. The truth about him not wanting to accept the Heisman is the truth. He was just fine sleeping, but he liked to sleep a lot, which he slept in the locker room at halftime. Literally slept in the locker at halftime. Fell asleep in the Holiday Bowl on the bench in the second quarter. But amazing that, I'm just going to say, in college, he was the greatest running back ever. And he was okay with it.
You remember when you realized that he was a big deal beyond Stillwater, beyond OSU people, like nationally people were like, holy crap, this guy.
Well, we knew it, but nationally we didn't know, because in 1988, there was no communication out of the Tulsa World today, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
That was it.
So there wasn't ever a moment when like somebody is knocking on his door wanting autographs, or I don't know.
Well, there was people that were hanging out, and we tried to hang around him because girls wanted to hang around him. So we were using him as
Mooching.
trolling, like bait. But we didn't have recognition. That's why there was such concern of him winning the Heisman, because we didn't know if anybody knew about him.
Do you remember when his locker, I think it was before the Nebraska game, had the little Post-it notes? You couldn't see his locker, though, because there were Post-it notes of all the media that wanted to talk to him. It was just covered.
And I'm sure when he left after the game,
It was still there. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Not wanted to
He
take.
used to tell Buzz, Steve Buzzer,
Yeah.
who was playing this role then, he'd say, Buzz, you gotta tell those guys, I don't have time, I'm tired. I mean, that's just not something he was interested in.
Does it surprise you now that he's doing commercials and things of that nature?
People change, right? I mean, all of a sudden, I started looking at his bank account, like, the Lions aren't paying me anymore, and I need to find a little money here. But he's done good with that.
Yeah.
Barry is a very intelligent person that nobody knows because he doesn't talk. But no, he's done very well.
What's your role in when you have these guys that are gaining national attention? You know, Blackman, Chuba a couple years ago, and these guys that are gaining national attention for national awards. What's your role in kind of marketing and making sure that voters or different outlets know about this guy?
So we want them, whatever Ollie wants to do, Ollie can do. I don't try to shelter or protect them. It's a waste of time, and I think it's more important that he learns to manage this more so than us trying to shelter him. So I'm sure Sean and them have been communicating with him, and Kevin, and all the things or whatever plans they might have for something, to give him information and give him the opportunity to essentially respond and market himself for what he wants to do. We don't hold him back in that area. I think it's just better to educate him and let him move forward.
Anything else for Coach?
Good? All right, thanks, guys.